Quick disclaimer, this video is an edited re-upload after an error in the initial upload was pointed out to me that compromised the list entirely. Long story short, I included a song in the list that didn't belong, and it was incorrectly labeled to begin with, so I deleted the video entirely to make the correction and re-upload to avoid, or at least minimize, confusion. If you want the details of the story, please see my Failure Friday episode. Link is in the description. I do want to thank those of you who noticed this and pointed out the mistake, as I tried to be as accurate as possible. The rest of this video from here on out is the corrected ranking. Sorry for the inconvenience and confusion. Alright, it's time to rank another soundtrack, and this time I'm going to be doing Mega Man X2 on the Super Nintendo. As always, I'm just doing the stage themes, so no title screen, no ending, no boss battle, etc. Just the stage themes, so there will be 12 songs to rank on this soundtrack. As always, I'll preface this by stating that this list is just strictly my opinion. Feel free to leave your opinion in the comments. I encourage discussion and debate. So, without any further ado, let's get on with the list. Number 12, X Hunter Fortress Stage 4. This one is low on the list for the same reason that Sigma Fortress Stage 4 was so low on my X1 rankings. Because it's more of an ambient piece on a very short loop than it is a song. You can make the argument that the foreboding vibe is fitting for the stage, which is the Mavericks rematches, but I don't think this is as fitting as the Sigma stage I previously mentioned, because that one was just a short walk to the final boss, which an eerie soundtrack is appropriate for. I don't feel like a boss rush stage is as appropriate for this type of song. And on top of that, I just plain don't like this one as much. It's more generic. Number 11, X Hunter Fortress Stage 3. This one feels less like a song than it does just a few riffs slapped together, and two of them are just different variations of each other. So there's really only like two different lead riffs in the whole song. It sounds pretty cool. I do like the dirgy tone, but it doesn't flow well. It's almost as if we're presented with an unfinished prototype of a song. Number 10, Overdrive Ostrich. There's definitely some good playing on here, and it's a good beat, but it's just a guitar solo all the way through. Yeah, some of the licks are cool, but it's mostly just noodling around. Number 9, Crystal Snail. I like the tone, and the bass lines all throughout are really good. But, once you get past the intro with the steel drums and you're onto the verse, you're more or less hearing the same riff over and over again, or at the very least, the same chord progression. I know that the riff does change up, but it's just kind of bland and sounds too much like the main verse riff. It just kind of is what it is. Number 8, Morph Morph. I generally like when songs do that thing where the beat is really fast and upbeat, but the lead melody is slow and methodical. That's what happens in Morph Morph stage for the majority of it. There's an intro riff that's played once, and then it goes into the verse, and then there's a variation of the intro riff that gets called back, before going into a pretty cool end sequence. I do like that this song sounds quite distinct from the rest of the soundtrack. It does that contrast thing between melody and beat that I like, and the end sequence is nice, but I'm not really big on any of the melodies for some reason. They really don't do a lot for me. Number 7, Magna Centipede. There are some cool riffs in this song. The drums are awesome, and it's very high energy all the way through. But I'm not a big fan of the arrangement. I think it's rushed through. You go from one section to the next at a lightning pace, and it's not because the song is up-tempo, it's just that the sections are short. But then the breakdown kicks in and it feels like it hangs around forever, but that's only because it's relative to all the other sections taking about 6 seconds apiece. So that part almost overstays its welcome. I do like the fact that until you get to that breakdown, there's variety in the riffs because you're never hearing the same thing twice, but it's more of the way that it's presented. The riffs build up to a crescendo, but it's not much of a crescendo if it's like the third riff in the song. I also think it's kind of weird that they don't include the bass-only lead-in the intro of the song. Instead, it actually ends the loop, segueing the breakdown with the intro. That is pretty cool because you don't really know where the song ends or begins by that point. Number 6, Wheel Gator. Now, some people might find the lead instrumentation to be a little too abrasive in tone, but I like the effect. It sounds like a saxophone with distortion on it or something. Although I will say I don't think it works too well during the intro, but the verse and refrain sounds good, and I love the chugging in the background during the refrain. Number 5, X Hunter Fortress Stages 1 and 2. The song's so nice that they had to use it twice. Kind of like how the first 4 classic Mega Mans treated the castle stages, but in this game, for some reason, they only did it for stages 1 and 2, so they must have really liked this one. And for good reason. It's fast, energetic, and has some pretty catchy riffs. I think at this point, it pretty much became a mandate for the first level of any castle stage to be assigned a memorable song. It's a pretty short loop, but it kicks you in the face and checks all the boxes for a good, fitting castle theme. Number 4, X Hunter Fortress Stage 5. Final stage of the game, which takes place in a recreation of the first chunk of Magna Centipede stage, has a song that takes a very different approach from X1's final stage. Instead of a long vertical hallway with no obstacles between X and Sigma, the dark ambient track that was previously mentioned was fitting. This time you've got shit to deal with, so it makes more sense to have something with a little more urgency behind it. And boy do we get urgency. They could have named the fucking track Urgency. It's 0 to 60 and it doesn't let up. And it's got a great balance of busy solos with melodic riffs. Number 3, Wire Sponge. 2 things stand out to me in this song. One is how it shuffles back and forth between being very dramatic and bombastic, and then changes gears and is suddenly light and pretty. Although the heavy drums are still intact during this segment. And then after that, it's very steady and kind of in between those two before going into a solo in the end section. So it covers a lot of ground in terms of moods. The other thing that stands out is the bass. It's fucking sick, especially in the end segment. It sounds like something Les Claypool probably would have played on here if you were asked. And similar to Wheel Gator, I really like how this one stands out from the pack. It's quite different. Number 2, Bubble Crab. I love the drums, maybe more than anything else in the song. It just has all these crazy fills, but it doesn't sound like an over-the-top drum solo. It keeps the beat while staying super busy at the same time. It's classy. I love to hear these drums played exactly the way they are in the song by a live drummer. One thing I didn't really notice until I let the song repeat several times is how the end section that transitions back into the intro sounds more like an intro than the intro does. And on top of that, there really isn't a refrain per se. It's more like intro, bridge, verse, and then the end section. So without that real hook, you can find yourself getting lost in the song because you don't really know where you are if it's following an unconventional structure. On top of that, you've got shit like the end section sounding more like an intro. It can cause you to recalibrate, and in your mind, the end is the beginning. Kind of like Magna Centipede. It's a pretty cool little trick, even if it wasn't the intention. I personally like these verses the most as far as straight up riffs go, but the somewhat odd arrangement and the drums are what do it for me the most with Bubble Crab. And number 1, Flame Stag. This song is so fucking heavy. It comes right out with an awesome distorted riff, and the drums fall in with a blast beat, but it's not just a robotic blast beat that sounds like a typewriter either. There's some really sweet little rolls and paradiddles. It's fucking awesome. And the awesome beat is played throughout most of the song, but over a more melodic, moderately played lead. Again, that contrast of speed while still maintaining the same tempo will usually do it for me. I know I mentioned how much I love the drums in Bubble Crab, and really the whole soundtrack. The drums are probably the most consistently awesome played instrument on the soundtrack, but this song is the ultimate showcase of drums on Mega Man X2. Then it has a brief breakdown where they play like a march. So despite Flamestag being so upbeat and heavy, there's more going on here than you might think. It's not just a one-dimensional burst of adrenaline all the way through. It's a multi-dimensional burst of adrenaline all the way through. So that's it for this list. Here is a quick recap. Number 12, X Hunter Fortress Stage 4. Number 11, X Hunter Fortress Stage 3. Number 10, Overdrive Ostrich. Number 9, Crystal Snail. Number 8, Morph Moth. Number 7, Magna Centipede. Number 6, Wheel Gator. Number 5, X Hunter Fortress Stages 1 and 2. Number 4, X Hunter Fortress Stage 5. Number 3, Wire Sponge. Number 2, Bubble Crab. And number 1, Flamestag. So that's it for this list. What are your thoughts? What do you agree with or disagree with? Feel free to leave those in the comments. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.